Welcome, everybody, to the Sexuality, Pleasure, and Communication panel. My name is Leah Carey. I am a sex and intimacy coach. I am also the host of the podcast, Good Girls Talk About Sex, where I interview women of all types about their sex lives. It's pretty much the most fun conversation you can have. So here's a little rundown of how this is going to go, and then I'll invite everyone else to introduce yourselves. We're going to do some quick introductions so you know who all the people are that you're listening to. Then we're going to, everybody on the panel is going to offer a myth that they want to bust. Because there are so many myths about sexuality in the world. We want to do a little bit of work around unlearning some of the toxic messages you might have heard. Then we'll go into some more free-flowing conversation around some topics that we as a group have identified that we'd like to talk more about. And then at the closing, we're also going to give you, everybody's going to give you a takeaway, which is, either the most important thing they want you to remember from today, or maybe even something that you can go put into practice in your bedroom tonight. So, okay, ladies, did I miss anything? No? Okay, great. Oh, and there's also a poll. If you want to go over into the poll section and let us know what some of your biggest challenges around sex and sexuality are, we want to get an idea of who we're talking to as well. And so now I'm going to invite everyone to introduce yourselves. I'll just call on you in the order I see you on my screen. So Shirley, would you like to hop in and let us know who you are and what you do?
Hi guys, my name is Shirley Hernandez. I am a podcaster and I focus on healing through holistic healing. And I am a first generational woman. So that is where I specialize.
Well, thank you. Did you say the name of your, what's the name of your podcast?
Alien Healer.
Great. Thank you. Rachel, how about you?
Hello, everybody. My name is Rachel Kako. I am your go-to girl for life and relationship coaching, up-leveling your relationships to partnerships, power partnerships, and also powerful feminine leadership. So I've worked professionally in the personal development industry for over 16 years as a trained workshop leader, facilitator, coach, and coach of coaches, working for mega companies such as Allison Armstrong's PAX programs, understandmen.com, and PSI seminars, just to name a few. I am a mother of 2 boys, a 6-year-old and an 11-month-old. God help me, I have no sleep lately. And I'm a first generation Filipino American, and I'm excited. We're going to play today, so I'm so happy you guys are all here.
Thank you, Rachel. Margot, you're up.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here and to chat about this topic. My name is Margot Zayer, and I'm an empowerment and relationship coach for women. And I support women in uncovering those triggers and reclaiming their power, whatever's holding them back from having their dream relationships, what they really desire in their relationships. So bringing it to a higher level of intimacy, passion, connection, and love. And I've been in this space doing coaching since the year 2000 in various ways, and have found that my biggest passion is really supporting empowerment for women. So that's why I'm excited to be here.
Great. Thank you, Margot. Griffin.
Hi, everybody. My name is Griffin Miller, and I help overwhelmed moms have great sex with their partners. And I have been in the holistic health space for over 15 years now. I worked as a midwife, as a doula, both birth and postpartum, and have been able to help women in all stages of life. And I am a tips and tricks girl. So I like checklists, I like quick action items, and that is my very favorite way to coach. So I am so excited to be here today, and I just know you guys are going to get so much from everybody here.
Griffin. And Octavia.
Hello, everyone. I'm Octavia Evans, aka OEV, which are my initials. And I like to call myself the Harriet Tubman of your sex life, as I help high achieving women of faith embrace their sexuality in order to help create the ships in sex life of their dreams without compromising their faith. I do a daily show on Clubhouse during the week called Sex for Ladies. It has been on hiatus because I was overcoming some grief with the recent passing of my mom. But I'm back now, and so I'm getting back at that. I have been married for 17 years, and I have 5 stair-steppers. They are 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14. So I am the #1 sexologist for women of faith as well. And I'm married to a former pastor, and I guess what I do led him away from the church, which is probably why a lot of people don't like that. That's a joke, by the way. That's not the reason he left. But in any event, I help those in the church get from sexual frustration to sexual liberation without compromising their faith. So I untaboo sex in the church. And I'm not just because I'm good at this and because I had a lot of kids, but also because one of the most religiously sexually repressed women in the world are women of faith. So that's why I specialize in what I do. And I'm here to have fun as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Octavia. I hope we have lots of fun too. To just a little bit more about me, again, I'm Leah Carey. I'm a sex and intimacy coach. I come to this work from a background of pretty significant sexual repression after an abusive childhood. And about 5 years ago, in my early 40s, I went through my own sexual healing process. And I now work with other women who, like me, were brought up to be very good girls to unlearn all that toxic messaging, so that we can embrace the pleasure that is here for us that we thought we weren't supposed to be having. So, okay, let's jump in. Like I said, we're going to do some myth busting, and I don't know. I think I got us here in alphabetical order. So, Griffin.
Hello. So I love talking about some of these myths because we have so many things that as women we attach onto as truth because our girlfriends tell us, or our mothers, our grandmothers, and what may be truth for them doesn't mean it has to be truth for us. And so what I want to bring to the table to this discussion, because I've been told this multiple times, is that once you have kids, your sex life dies. And I am here as a mom of 2 kids to tell you that that does not have to be true. That does not have to be your truth. That there are plenty of ways to keep that sexual attraction, that sex life with you and your partner going strong, regardless of how many additional heartbeats there are in your home. One of my very favorite ways to kind of help moms in the trenches when you feel like sex life is so far distant is to implement a post-bedtime date. So get those kiddos to bed and then date your partner at home. So you don't have to have the funds for a babysitter. You do not need a fancy hotel room to bring back sex. You can do it right from the comfort of your home while those little ones are sleeping down the hallway. So as we go through, I know you guys are going to walk away with lots of ways to implement this as soon as tonight. And all of us are so excited to see your sex life just flourish at the end of
Yes. So what I want to talk about in terms of a myth is this idea that there is something that is quote unquote normal and that everything outside of that is abnormal. One of the biggest questions that I get from clients, as well as from people who listen to the podcast, I get lots of emails from people saying, I want this and what's wrong with me? I think I'm not normal. You know, I am a very proper woman and I want to be tied up. Or I, have these fantasies about people who I'm not supposed to be fantasizing about. What's wrong with me? There's so, and I even get I get a lot of questions from men because when they see that I work with female sexuality, of course, they want to be part of it. And more than once, I've gotten questions from men saying, I am a smaller man who is interested and who is attracted to large women. What's wrong with me? Nothing. Nothing is wrong with you. We all have our own attractions. We all have our own interests. We all have our own kinks and fetishes and all of that. We all like being touched differently. We all like different experiences, and all of it is normal. There is nothing that is abnormal in the realm of sexuality. Here is the dividing line. Everything is normal, unless you want to hurt someone without their consent. You can hurt someone with their consent all day long, as long as you're both okay with it. If you want to hurt someone without their consent, that is something that needs to be addressed. Or if you want to engage with people who are underage. Other than that, as long as everybody is on board and you've had a conversation and you know that everybody is a hell yes, it's okay. It's normal. Let's let go of this idea that there are things that are just not okay. If you can think about it, you can do it. And there's somebody who wants to do it with you. Next up, Margot.
Hi, everyone. My myth really dovetails really nicely with Leah's in that it's about something that's near and dear to my heart because I suffered from this myself, was with the feeling that something was wrong with me if I couldn't get excited as quickly as my partner was getting excited. So I spent a lot of time in past relationships being like, why am I not excited yet? I should get excited. And what that was doing was taking me out of the pleasure of the moment and into my mind, which was actually slowing down my arousal process. So what I learned was that it is totally subjective. It's basically every person has a different way of getting aroused, and what really arouses them can be totally different. Even day to day, it's different. And so comparing yourself to your partner or even to yourself to last week actually constricts your energy and keeps you from being able to get aroused. So it's almost like you're creating the issue yourself. And so what has helped me kind of work through this process is when I start thinking like, oh my gosh, why am I not getting aroused? I should be getting aroused faster. Is be like, okay, let me just sink into the pleasure of this. What is pleasurable about right now? And not be so focused on the end result, on the goal of getting aroused. And because there's so much pleasure and just the fun of being aroused is part of the fun of sex, right? And so that's what I would love for us all to be able to embrace more, is just really being part of the present moment and what is happening versus trying to get somewhere, which slows down that sexual arousal process for most people.
Awesome. And yes, we're going to talk a lot more about pleasure during this session. Octavia.
Yes. And I agree with both ladies as we were talking about, like, they were talking about one about after having children, and even about pleasure. When do, I can get, like, my partner's already aroused, but I'm not there yet. A lot of these things come from these preconceived notions that we've gotten over the years as women. And being that I'm a sexologist and I'm primarily work with women of faith, this was one of the biggest ones. And so my first workshop ever, and I'm going to cover the myth about it's hard for women to reach orgasms. My first ever workshop ever years ago was on how to get an orgasm. I have been dealing with ladies that I made a Facebook group for ladies, and they were all actually from Nigeria, every last one of them. And so many in there that came in that group, it was a free group at the time, was like, I've never had an orgasm. And I just could not believe it. And especially when I got to women who've been married 10 years plus, at that time, that was longer than I had been. And so I was like, well, why is this so hard? So as I began to research and even ask doctors, so many was like, well, our bodies are complex. I'm listening to these men tell me this as a woman. And I'm like, bodies are not complex. Our bodies are amazingly and fabulously made. So what is it that's happening that we're not reaching orgasms? Why is it that 75% of women, when they're having sex, cannot reach an orgasm? The clitoris only has one job, and that's pleasure. So damn hard about us not getting to an orgasm. And I realized it's actually here. It's our mind. And so the first thing we had to do was, it wasn't hard for men to get it. And so they're thinking, well, because the penis protrudes, and, as long as this, he's getting his back and forth, it's easy for him to climax. Well, guess what? When I began to search deeper and deeper and talk to sexologists and sex experts, they told me about studies that I actually looked up and saw that you put a man and a woman in a room next to each other, separate. Within 60 seconds, both of them have orgasms. And I'm like, yes, because when you know what pleases you and turns you on, and you have no mental blocks, it does not take us long to have an orgasm. We're not complex. So you have to start, first of all, you have to stop telling yourself a story that it's hard to reach. The moment you say that, your subconscious mind hears that and makes it so. You got to stop saying or believing that our bodies are complex. We're not. We have, our body parts are amazing. And I get so passionate talking about this because I absolutely love my body, whatever shape it's been in, whatever state it's been in, having children or not. And when I began to get in touch with my own body and learn that my body talks to me, your body talks to you. Your body tells you when you're hungry. And what do? You feed your body. Your body tells you when you're sleepy. What do? You go to sleep. Your body tells you when you're tired. What do? You get rest. But the moment that a woman's body tells her that she wants sexual pleasure, she says no to her body. She says, no, I must restrain. I can't do this. This is a sin or this. So you begin to tell yourself this all these years. And you begin to tell yourself that your body is complex or that I can't have an orgasm. And so your body is going to eventually say, well, I don't know what to say to you anymore, because every time I've told you since you were young, you have denied. You haven't done anything, but yet you feed. When the body speaks, your body speaks, you feed her. When she's tired, you feed her. But when it comes to me, you leave me. You abandon me. And so I started working with ladies on their mindset and realized they were never really appropriately taught about sex. And one of the biggest things most of us were never taught was to embrace our sexuality, our capacity for sexual feelings. We have capacity for love. We have capacity for emotions, all these things. But when it comes to sex, that's the one thing we're taught you do not. That's the first thing we hear when it comes. Don't touch your body. Don't do this. Don't do that. So when you have a lifetime of that, you can even get married and have the worst sex, because these were married ladies I was talking to initially. And I began to realize that we've been telling, especially girls, we don't tell this to our boys, but we tell this to our girls, do not. So the one thing I would say, it is not, the myth is it's hard for women to reach orgasms. No, it's not. Once you get over the mind blocks and stop telling yourself these stories and stop believing them, you actually can be free and can orgasm within 60 seconds or less. The more in tune you are with your body, the more you tell yourself stories like, I love my body loves me. When she needs me, I am there for her. We're there for everyone else. But I swear when it comes to taking care of us, especially when it comes to sex, everybody gets pleased but us. They get orgasms but us. And this is why when you look at studies and you take it outside of heterosexual and you get to lesbians, 85% of lesbians are having orgasms. Why? Why? Because they're finally paying attention to another woman's body that's just like hers and saying, hey, this is the way I would like to be pleased. And so once we get over the mind blockers, it's not a problem to orgasm, just like that. And you do not have to depend on your partner to get you there. You're already there.
I love that. Thank you, Octavia. And there's a great comment in the chat. I'm not going to call anybody out by name because I know this will be posted on YouTube at some point. But one of our listeners said, I thought I couldn't orgasm for decades because I'd heard the message that the female orgasm was complex and elusive and that not having an orgasm was normal. Turns out I was just a lesbian. My body was totally fine. I love that. Yes, your body is totally fine. Rachel, can you share with us your myth?
Yes, I'm happy to. So there's this myth out there that we have to look like a Playboy model, an Instagram model, some chick off the magazine pages or scrolling through Instagram in order to keep a man's attention Get his attention, keep his attention. That's what's sexy. Total myth. Let me tell you why. So, first and foremost, when you are looking at these women, one of the things about us women is that we see beauty, right? We see beauty in everything. It's one of our gifts as women. And yes, you have to be blind to not see beauty and curves in other women. We ladies look at other women like, she's pretty, she's beautiful, I like those curves, right? And so first of all, everybody has some kind of filter through your eyes of what beauty is and what sexy is. All right, so that's one part. The other part that I want to talk about in regards to sexy is that I'm going to suggest that when you are looking at Instagram models, these Playboy models, it's not really you looking at them. It's something else looking at them. It's the inner critic in us. Every woman has an inner critic. You all know what I'm talking about. This inner critic constantly is comparing you and other women to the perfect woman. In your mind, what is the perfect woman? And the perfect woman, in actuality, doesn't exist. Like, she doesn't have a birth certificate. She does not exist, but we constantly do this. And the inner critic has a whole committee of voices that she consults with of what's sexy, what's right, what's wrong. And we're constantly comparing ourselves to those Playboy models, those Instagram models, or thinking this is what is sexy. And especially on social media, the inner critic is comparing our lowlights in our life to the highlights that people are posting all up on social media. Do we agree with that, ladies? Right? Isn't that what's happening? It's not really us. It's the inner critic. So here's what I'm going to tell you. To combat the inner critic, start to recognize what she says, how she says it, what she compares you to, so that you can, instead of her controlling you, you can at least have a grip on her to understand when she gets loud, when she speaks up, when she has you feel not sexy. Okay. So start to understand and become friends with her. Say things like, thank you for sharing. And you can go away right now because this is me. All right. So notice the inner critic. The other thing is that there's a part of us as women that is like the physical aspect of being a woman. All of us have it. I call her the Enchantress. And the Enchantress is that physical part of womanhood, of being a woman. She's that playful, sexy side of us that most women, we very rarely bring out. And and the other thing is when it comes to the Enchantress, for a lot of us, the Enchantress got us in trouble when we were younger, or there's religious influence of how we're supposed to be or how it's wrong to be, this enchantressness, this playfulness. And so we put her away, and she only comes out to play in secret. And so what I recommend is turn on your Enchantress. Turn on your Enchantress. When it comes to being with your kids, you can't be playful and tired at the same time. When it comes to sexy time with your partner, you can't be sexy and tired at the same time either. And what I mean by tired is, yes, there's all us moms, there's like that layer of tiredness, but we get through. We find ways to keep our energy up. Especially during a pandemic. We've all survived to this point. So congratulations, ladies. You're still breathing. You're still alive. We've had some tragic things happen. All of us. A pandemic is legit. A global pandemic at that. Not just in your hometown, girls. It's been global. So turn on that Enchantress. Bring her out. Have fun. And part of turning on the Enchantress, bringing out the Enchantress is paying attention to what makes you happy and what brings you pleasure. Okay. Get enough sleep. Do your best to get enough sleep. Not ideal. I'm going to be the first to tell you I'm not getting 8 hours straight sleep uninterrupted. I have a 6-year-old and a 10-month-old in my bed most nights. I'm not getting it. I'm not getting 8 hours sleep, but I take a nap here and there to keep my energy up, So again, can't be playful and tired at the same time. Can't be sexy and playful and tired at the same time. You gotta fuel yourself with that natural energy that your body produces. So let's get back to sexy. Okay. In my workshops, I talk a lot about men. I support women in understanding men from a place of partnership, not from a place of manipulation and strategy. And how do I know how to support them in having those kinds of powerful relationships with men? It's because I've done a lot of research with men, and I've learned from them, and I've listened to them. And I bring in a panel of men at the end of my workshops to answer the questions that the women have had all weekend about men, to really validate the things I've been teaching them. So I'm going to tell you the 4 top things that men have said over and over and over again. And I'm talking about men as young as 18 to men as old as, I think my eldest man I had on my panel is like in his 70s. And these are the 4 things that they say actually makes women sexy. All right. So here we go. We're ready. We're ready, ladies. So here's one of the things they always say in some way, shape, or form. It's self-confidence. Now, this doesn't mean you have to be self-confident all the time, 100% of the time. You can't, like, there's what they mean by self-confidence is that she knows what she's confident in and she knows where she's not, that she doesn't fake where she's not and tries to be it. Is there a place for aspiring to be different or enhance something in your life? Yes. And they always allude to, as long as it's truly from her heart, which I believe they're talking about the Enchantress versus the inner critic fueling that in you. So, for example, for me, something I am confident in no matter what season, no matter how old I am, whatever, I am confident in my curves. I have a curvy butt. And I can't hide it. It can be distracting sometimes. But no matter what size I've been a size 2, I've been a size 8. I'm still not back to my pre-baby weight. That's something I'm always confident in. So just be clear on what you know you're confident in. And I'd love to see in the chat from other ladies, what do you know that she's confident in? What are you confident in, no matter, till someone can tell you blue in the face you're not, and you just know, no, I'm confident in that. Okay. I want to see that in the chat, ladies. Go ahead and comment in the chats. Another thing that they say is when a woman embraces her curves, it is so sexy. And so this is different than what we default to, because the inner critic does look at our bodies, but we see lumps and bumps and what's not the right size, what's not working for us, right? So when a woman embraces her curves and loves the shape of her body, or parts of the shape of her body, it's sexy for them. That's what they think is sexy. Another thing is they just want us, like, what's sexy is when we're present. They want us to actually like look at our eyes and know that we're there and we're seeing them and we're happy to be there with them. Because so many times, and ladies, we know we do this, we are multitasking all the time. I could physically be here with you, but in my mind, I'm thinking about 10 other things that I got to do, or 10 other things that need my attention. So being present in the moment, nothing else exists but being present with your partner is so sexy. And then one of the other things that I love that they say is sexy is just being happy to be there. Just being happy to be with them, just being happy to be in their presence. So turn on that happy, an authentic happy, doesn't need to fake a happy, but just look for what makes you happy about being there, being present, what makes you confident, and embracing your curves. That's what I got.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. Shirley.
Guys, this is Shirley again from Alien Healer. To kind of summarize what everyone touched on, as women, we aren't encouraged to explore our bodies. We are not encouraged to explore our sexuality. And we've always been taught that it's about the other person. It's about what your partner wants. It's about when they want it. And the big myth here is that once you're in a relationship, that consent is just given altogether forever. And that's not the case. We own our own bodies. We are our own vessels. And just because we're with someone, that doesn't mean that they own us or our bodies. So it isn't just about when they want to have sex. It isn't about just when they want to because they want to, and then we feel bad. So as relationships change, consent does change. So there's a conversation that you need to have with your partner. I'm at this place and in my life. So when I say no, it's no, or you'll know, I'll give you a nod, this or the nod. I really mean no. It's that communication that you have to have with your partner as you grow, as you evolve together and individually. But we come from a society that it's about pleasing the other. And as women, we're nurturers. So we always want to give and overextend ourselves. And it comes back to, if you're not fully there, you're not going to enjoy it. You're not going to enjoy the act. And it should be pleasurable for both of you, not just your partner.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Shirley. I wanted to just take a moment to comment on something that Rachel was talking about in terms of our confidence. Part of as I mentioned when I was introducing myself, I come from a very repressed background. And so I went on this year-long sexual healing journey, which I'm working on the book about right now. And one of the things that I pushed myself so far outside my comfort zone. I mean, I was the quintessential good girl. And one of the things that I did when I was in the midst of this journey was I booked a 5-day trip to a sex resort in Jamaica by myself. And I did it, thank you very much. I did it thinking that maybe I was going to go have some great sexual experiences and adventures. Turned out that it was not the right environment for me to have those particular adventures. But what I did was it was a nude resort. So I laid naked on the beach for 5 days, surrounded by other naked people. And what I discovered, because I'm very extra weight, I am a curvy girl. I discovered that this belief I had that when somebody saw my body, they were going to say, "Oh, never mind, put your clothes back on. I don't really want to see that. I don't want to play with that." That was absolutely not true. That I got just as much attention. Nobody made a comment about my body in a negative way ever. But even more than that, there were women on that beach. And of course, I'm looking at the women because they're the ones who I'm, comparing myself against. I'm looking at these women who are literally in every size and shape body, from the teeniest, tiniest to the largest body you can imagine, naked. There were people using walkers. There were literally everybody. Every single one of them had somebody looking at them with desire. So I can now absolutely confidently say that every single body has somebody who is looking at you with desire, with attraction, with, that feeling of, oh, I want to touch her. I want to be with her or him or, whatever the gender, because I've seen it in action. And I recently, I have my own body image issues still. It's not like I did this one 5-day trip and suddenly I'm healed and I shall never have those issues again. Hell no. We've been going through a pandemic. I have gotten softer. And so just a few weeks ago, I was with my partner, and he doesn't tell me that he loves my body, because very often, unless I ask him to, because he has learned from his experiences with other women that no matter how much you fill that hole, it never actually gets filled. That no matter how much they tell us that they love our body, we're never actually going to believe them. And so he just got into the habit of not saying it anymore. And so I was saying to him, I really need to hear you tell me that you like my body. He's like, but you're not going to believe me. I was like, you know what? You're kind of right. And what he said was, yours is the body that I fantasize about. When I go online and I, look at the adult pleasure sites, yours is the type of body that I'm looking for. And I didn't believe him. And so I want you to take me online. I want you to take me to those sites, and I want you to show me those bodies. And he very literally took me to those sites, and I could see which ones he went to most frequently, which ones he had bookmarked, and they were people who had bodies like mine. This idea that we all have to look like supermodels in order to be attractive and desirable is so far off the mark. Okay, so I've just talked a bunch, and we have a bunch of topics that we want to hit on. So I'm just going to bring up a topic. We'll go for as long as we have energy on it, then we'll move to something else, and I'm sure that we'll get off onto lots of good tangents. But one of the main topics here today that is communication. So Margot, I know that you had some thoughts about communication and intimacy and how we talk about sex.
Hi again, everyone. Well, one of the things that I've observed in my life and with my clients is that a lot of times we hold back communicating with our partner what we really desire. We have these thoughts like, I wish he would do this, I wish he would do that. But for some reason or another, we don't give ourselves permission to be real and really communicate. And the first thing I think that happens is if we don't speak from our heart what we need as far as pleasure, what turns us on in the sexual arena, because we're either scared that they're going to somehow judge it, or they're going to somehow think, oh, well, I didn't give that to her. They're going to get upset at us, reject us. Different negative things could happen if we don't speak up. Well, what I first want to say, if we don't speak up, the real issue that happens is eventually it starts actually building this wall of distance. Like we no longer can connect the same way heart to heart. And the energy of that sexual energy actually diminishes because there's these things, these unsaid truths that start blocking our energy field. So speaking up is really important as far as reestablishing a deeper connection with our partner. Also, it's important because again, we've been discussing how key it is for women to really stand in their power and ask for their needs to be met. I mean, one of the things, again, that we discussed earlier is how often we give away ourselves because we're so nurturing, especially as moms, right? We want to take care of everyone, and then we don't even think about, well, what's our need? What do I really want? And so we tend to kind of go along with what the other person is doing or showing up or trying to support them. And I know for myself in the sexual arena in past partnerships before being with my soulmate now, I had trouble really expressing what I needed in the bedroom. I was vague. I wasn't clear exactly on what it was, first of all. So one thing is getting clear on what exactly did I need or want from my partner that I wasn't getting. And secondly, I didn't know when to communicate what I needed. And third, I didn't know how to communicate this in a way where my partner could really listen to me. So some of the things that I think is really important to think about in the arena of communication around your sexual needs, your needs for pleasure, and any kind of need is one is getting the clarity and just really tuning in first, like, what is it I really want more of in my sex life? Do I want more just simply being with my partner and playing around with touch or arousal? Do I want more like sexy playtime where I'm dancing around? Like, what is it I want more of? What do I even want more of in intercourse? Like, really ask yourself what you need more of. I think is such an important exploration for all women. The second recommendation I would make, and I love the rest of the panel to obviously feedback on this, is I think that it's so key to really figure out when and how the best time is to have these sort of discussions about what you really want more of in the bedroom. One of the experiences that I've had is that when you're actually in the middle of sexual act or intercourse, that saying, oh, I want this or I need that can actually do something to the energy field, the sexual energy field. And I've had my partner not always respond positively, specifically because I've often said things like, hey, don't do that, I want that. And it came across a little bit strong. And it stopped the energetic flow. It stopped our sexual energy. And so because of that, I was like, oh no, I shouldn't speak up. And it shut me down. So one of the things that I found really helpful with my partner is just to simply have the conversation at a time when you're just enjoying a pleasurable evening, and maybe you're like, we'll just have some quality time together and let's just talk about sex. Let's just get real about what our needs are and just have an open, free-flowing conversation where it comes from you. What do you need and what you want? Not about like, hey, you're doing this wrong. Like, why are you going so quickly? Or why are you doing that? Why aren't you arousing me more in this way? So again, it's, I think, important in all healthy communication to really start with your needs, you're focusing on you, and so that your partner can be more receptive to really hear what you have to say. And the more you can have that sort of vulnerability and really also maybe even express, hey, this is hard for me to say if that's true for you. Like before you express it, to be like, what is true for me? Am I nervous about this? Am I anxious? Am I kind of scared? Is this feel easy? I mean, just to say, hey, this is a little bit tender for me, or something I'm not used to talking about, or maybe a little uncomfortable. If you can say that before you start this conversation about your sexual needs, it also can open up your partner to be more receptive and really hear what you have to say, because they'll be like, oh, they're in a tender spot. This is hard for them to say. And I find that this helps open up the communication field, making it easier to be understood with your partner. And also it allows you to be able to relax and feel safer when your partner can be in a more receptive mode. Something I recommend my clients do too, really quickly on this, is to ask for what they need maybe before they have the conversation. Like, hey, I need a little closeness. I need to be held. I would like a hug. I would like to just connect with you, look into your eyes. Before you express something that may be challenging for you to reveal about your wants and needs, I think it's also really important to establish that connection. So I want to make sure that the rest of the panel can feedback on this a bit. So that's what I would like to say for now.
That's awesome. I think one of the things to kind of piggyback off of what Margot just said that I often encourage clients to do is to find a podcast. And I know we have a couple podcasters on with us today, and kind of set up a podcast club with your partner. And you guys each go listen to a particular episode and discuss your sex life in the context of that podcast. I think sometimes we don't know how to name or put what we want into words. And sometimes using somebody else's words can actually be really helpful, even if it's just saying, yeah, I don't want anything to do with that, right? Because that's valuable information too. So that's one of the things that I love to encourage people to do. Sometimes it can be fun to listen together. I was talking about a post-bedtime date. I will have them do like a bedtime picnic and do a charcuterie platter in the bedroom and listen to the podcast and talk about it and try to destigmatize these conversations. So it doesn't feel like a parent-teacher conference, but it feels like something really fun. And like I said, I would really direct you guys to these two podcasts in particular. I know, Leah, you can this, but I know you have a list available where partners can go through and say, yes, I like this. Maybe I like this. So maybe I'll just pass it right over to you and you can dive deeper into that particular item.
Absolutely. I love it. So what you're referring to is a yes, no, maybe list. And this was developed primarily by the kink community. I know that there's a lot of people who aren't involved in the kink community often think, oh, there's a lot of scary stuff that goes on there. And if you've read 50 Shades of Grey, you might be kind of turned on by it, but also think there's a lot of abuse going on there. So let me tell you, 50 Shades of Grey was the example of a terrible dom. Like, that was an absolutely terrible example, although it did bring BDS conversation. So, okay, positives and negatives. But the BDSM community, or the kink community in general, what they do incredibly well is communicate. There is no healthy kink experience that doesn't involve a high level of communication, because both know what the other one is into, what the other one is absolutely not into, the things that are absolute hard red lines. If this happens, I'm getting up and leaving the room. Or if this happens, I might go into a complete, freeze state because it triggers old trauma. Like, those kinds of conversations are absolutely imperative to have in a kink situation. And then also, what's your tolerance level? Do you want this, if I'm going to spank you, do you want it at a 2 or at a 10? Those kinds of conversations have to happen. And so the kink community has really developed these ways of having robust conversations. And they developed this idea of the yes, no, maybe list, where there's this long list of activities where both partners fill it out and say, yes, this is something I'm interested in. No, this is something I'm absolutely not interested in right now. Things may change. And maybe this is something that I might be interested in under the right circumstances. If I'm feeling really warm and comfortable and, I don't have work the next day, and whatever those circumstances are, or that, once we've been together for 6 months and we've sort of like established a really good communication, then maybe I would be interested in that. So what I've done with my list is to take that and bring it into the non-kink, or the quote unquote vanilla space. I don't like the term vanilla because a lot of people use it as a degrading term, but it's the word I've got. So, so a yes, no, maybe list for beginners, which really focuses on things like, what kinds of touch do you like? Where do you like to be kissed? Do you like public displays of affection or not? What sex, like literally what sex positions do you like? What toys do you like? Do we want to play a little bit kinky? Do we want to play with spanking and restraints and, different kinds of sensation, things like that? Do you want to play with a blindfold? And that way you can both fill out the list and then compare them to see where you're both a yes. I'll put a link into the chat with where you can go download this. One of the things that I hear from people is, I'm scared that my partner is going to find out that I'm into things that they're going to be judgy about, or they're going to be into things that I'm like, no, there's no way I don't want to do that. And then I'm going to somehow feel differently about them. So one of the things that we can do is, like, everybody can send their list to me and I facilitate the conversation where you're on things where you're both a yes, or where maybe one of you is a high maybe. So that everybody feels safe, because really it's all about coming together, finding the places where you want to play together, where you're both a hell yes. Because true consent is a hell yes. It's not the lack of a no. It is a hell yes, active and ongoing. So thanks, Griffin. Who'd like to talk next?
I'll chime in on this one. Okay, so I'm one of those girls that I speak while I'm confident out in my career. But when it comes to sex, I can't even say the word sex to my partner. I get shy. Even being on this panel, like you ladies know I'm prepping for, I'm like, I've never talked about these things publicly. Makes me a little uncomfortable. So I'm one of those. I know a lot of us are like that. Like I could not even say sex. I had to say, like, we had code words. Mattress Mambo, Sexy Time. When Flight of the Conchords was a hot show on HBO, we called it business time. Like, I couldn't even call it sex, okay? So early on, I tried something different with, and the father of my children, we've been together for 18 years. And so we've been together a long time and I still was shy about it. Okay. I basically like turned on my Enchantress with him and I said, look, I'm a restaurant. You're the only customer that can eat at the restaurant. Here's a restaurant menu and there's different menus. There's a drive-through menu. There's a sit down, order and go ahead and get your, like Chipotle style, like that kind of restaurant menu. Then there was like the 5-course menu. Okay. Like I made a menu for him. And on my menu, I had what the thing was. Like there were some simple things like kissing, cuddling. Okay. And then it went into the more explicit things, which again, I'm shy to say right now. I'll let you ladies share the explicit things, but there were explicit things on there. And then I had it on there. And then I had what I need before, what I need during, what can't happen during, and what I need after. And it was like a menu. And so there were times when he'd say, okay, what restaurants open right now? I'm like, drive through. I've had like a crazy day. Or he'd say, can we do a 5-course? Can I eat a 5-course menu? I'm like, yeah, we can this weekend. But I mean, I was so shy, I couldn't. And then he would say, all right, I'll pick number 1 on the menu. I'll pick, so he would say which things on the menu. So it's like, I provided for him what I liked, what was okay with me. He was a great customer and did the best he could, right, with what was on the menu. So that was early on. Eventually, we got to the place where I realized, for a lot of women, we complicate this conversation of sex so much. It's like we're baking a cake and we're fidgeting with opening the flour. Like it doesn't have to be that complicated. You just got to be playful with it. You know what I mean? And so sometimes like I couldn't even look at him to talk things through. It literally had to be dark, or I would playfully say to him, like, I have to tell you something, but you need to hold me and I can't look at you. And I would literally whisper in his ear, like I'd hold him and I'd say, and it's this simple. I would say, that thing that I like, I want to do that thing. Okay. And that's it. And then we would do the thing that I like. And while he's doing the thing, I would let him know I'm liking that he's doing the thing that I like. And then after we're done, I said, you were amazing at doing that thing that I liked. Thank you. And then if there was something that I needed more of or different, again, turning on my Enchantress, later on, I would say something like, that thing, I think I want to try something new with that thing next time. Or can we add a little something to that thing? Are you up for that? But totally playful. But again, do you hear like how my voice changed just talking about this? Like that's how shy I am about it. But again, the Enchantress, so simple, just simple, however you feel comfortable. What is the thing? When he does the thing, be purring while he's doing the thing. Purr like a kitten, purr like a, roar like a cougar, whatever you are, okay? Playfully say you want to do the thing. Purr when he's doing the thing. Thank him. Be happy. Tell him he was amazing when he did the thing. And if there was something you want to do different or need to change with the thing, be playful about it. Can we maybe try this thing with the thing? So that's my 2 cents when it comes to that.
I want to chime in real quick, in the shyness, and sometimes we do get shy with our partners. We don't want to be so open. And one of the exercises that I would recommend is you could easily try sexting because you're not in front of them, so you won't feel as judged. Even phone sex, it could be in the same house. It could be, in a different place where it's kind of you by yourself, but you're also experiencing it with your partner, and you get to know each other sexually, and you guys kind of get to chime in into your fantasies, and then maybe bring it to the bedroom, to the actual bedroom, and try it out.
If I can chime in, I would just say too, for me, like I call myself, since I deal with primarily women of faith. So these are going to be some of the most repressed women everywhere, right? Religiously sexually repressed. And words like slut or whore are all considered demeaning words. And so they're often used to disempower, all right? They're often used to disempower. And they're used to not just judge, but go on to condemn you for your thoughts, condemn you for your actions, condemn you for the things that you say. So one of the things I realized is that if these are the things you've been hearing all your life, and it's more than just that, but those are like this and that are sin, to think you got to bring these things under subjection to Christ. These are things that my clients have been hearing for years. So it can be extremely difficult for them to even show up in the bedroom, not just with a partner, but for their own selves, because they're guilt-ridden just being naked by themselves. They're like, oh my God sees me touching, oh my God, this guilt and their shame. And so it's so much to work through. So that's why in everything I do, it has to start with the mind. So I call myself the Harriet Tubman of your sex life, right? And one of the things, and the reason why, I mean, Harriet Tubman is iconic for all African Americans, right? But I took it to another level because one of the things about Harriet Tubman is she always dreamt about her freedom. No matter what the slave master said, no matter what everybody on the plantation said, she was determined in her mind she was going to be free. And then when she decided that she was going to be free, in her mind, she was free. So when your mind tells you something, you'll actually act it out. So why did she escape to freedom? There were laws, there were rules. She broke a rule that you can't be free. You're owned. And she was like, no more will I be owned by anyone. I'm going to own myself and I'm going to get to the freedom. Forget the laws. Sorry, make sure I'm saying, forget the laws, forget what they're saying, forget the fact that I could die for this. I'd rather live in freedom. I'd rather die than live in bondage any longer. So she got to freedom. Once she got to freedom, she could have just stayed in freedom, but she didn't. She went back and got others who also wanted what she had, what she wanted, what she had accomplished. And so that's how I see myself. So when I'm talking to a client and she's telling me all the things that she cannot do or that she's afraid to do, or guilt-ridden shame, I'm like, you can have whatever it is that you want once you're free here. So I'm going to show you ways. And when you say, well, I can't orgasm, well, I can't, we're not going to use I can't. Instead, we're going to say, I am orgasmic. We're not going to say that I'm shameful. No, I am. In the Bible, it talks about in the Garden of Eden where it says they were naked and unashamed. In order for a woman to truly show up and show out, because I teach women how to be on stage that see sex, their sex life as a stage, and they're there to perform. And so, how can you win the crowd, as they said in the movie Gladiator? He told them that's the way to his freedom, was to win the crowd. How are you going to win this crowd? You're going to show up and show out. But you can't do that unless you're free. You can't do that with chains on. You can't do that when you want to go further, but you're afraid, so you stop. So how do you get to that point? Then you see yourself as a sexual goddess that you really are. You're a sexual being. Even I teach our children that they're sexual beings. I remember posting myself online wearing a dress that I actually wore for a photo shoot. And I remember getting called all kinds of names, Jezebel, whore, just all kind of from people in the church. And so to one guy, I allowed women to say what they was going to say because I understand that they were repressed, but I wasn't going to allow that from men. And he called me a whore. And my response was, I'm the best damn whore on this planet. What I did was I took the word he used against me to disempower me, and I used it from a place of empowerment. I'm not saying that I'm a whore. I'm just saying that they can't use these things against me to judge me, because I've already judged myself that I'm amazing. Therefore, no one else's judgments matter at this point. So in order for us to get to freedom in sexuality, to where we embrace it, like if we just hold ourselves, I teach women, like, hold yourself, love yourself, hug yourself right now. How does that feel? That's what you have to do with your sexuality. Then when I'm with someone, excuse me, y'all, I need some water. When I'm with my husband, when I'm having sex, I can say what it is that I want because I'm speaking from a place of freedom, not from fear. I'm not speaking from a place of condemnation. I'm not speaking from a place of what I can't have or what. When I speak, I notice when I speak from freedom, I can have whatever it is I say that I can have, whether I want it this position or that way, no matter what it is. And I can be free to be as loud as I want to be, no matter who overhears. I'm being me, because we're taught as women to show up in our jobs, show up in our positions in education, and even to get married. And yet so many women are suffering in their marriages with it not having good sex. So I want to win in everything in life but sex? Like, no, this is why I say I'm the Harriet Tubman of your sex life. And I lead you from sexual frustration to sexual liberation by teaching you to create the sex life of your dreams. What is the sex life of your dream? It starts here. Before you can ever act it out, it starts right here. And when I began to envision the sex life that I wanted, to be naked and unashamed with all of my stretch marks, cellulite, all of that with the lights on, because I used to make sure they were off so you could, I want to be totally free in that, with my stomach sticking out after having 5 C-sections. I want to be totally free, because I'm not going to be free in every area of my life except sex. I'm going to be free in my life, period. So the only way I was able to do that was I had to first get it here, get to freedom, then go back and get others to freedom. Once we speak from freedom, we can never be silenced. So I can tell you what I want, when I want it, how I want it, and I can give consent, or I can take it back. I can say, no, I don't want to do that anymore. I can try this, or I cannot try that. That's when we as women, this is the name of this conference, Amplifying Her Voice. I'm going to amplify my damn voice in every area of my life, including sex. So I hope that helps.
Love it. Thank you, Octavia. I'm going to move us on to the next topic, if that's okay with everybody. Shirley, I know that you wanted to talk about fluidity around sexuality, especially and including for moms.
So we live in this idea of, you're a little girl and you're going to get married to a man and you're going to have children and you're going to live happily ever after. And the reality is that it doesn't look like that for everybody. And since a very young age, we're not allowed to explore sexuality. So we think that if we are attracted to a woman or attracted to someone else that we shouldn't, it's wrong. And many of us go our whole lives caring about what everybody else thinks. So we get married, we have the kids, and then what? We're unhappy, and we don't have these conversations with ourselves. We're not encouraged to have these conversations with ourselves. And then even if you're a lesbian, sometimes, if you identify as gay, you've been gay your whole life, and then you turn 30, 40, and you're like, maybe I'm attracted to this other person. Sexuality is fluid. And what we are attracted at the end of the day is souls. And like Octavia has said, it's so mental. Sex is so mental. So there's no right or wrong. So now we're stuck with what are they going to say? What are my children going to think? Because, I've been with a man for so long, or I've been with a woman for all these years. I've been fighting this cause, forever. Am I a fraud? Am I fake? And so now we repress our sexual desires. We repress everything within us, and we are living on. And not only are we not pleasuring ourselves, but we're not pleasuring our partner, because you could feel that, sex is an energy that you interchange. So now we're giving our baggage to someone else. We have to sit with ourselves. And it isn't wrong that at 30, 50, 80, 29, that you want to rearrange your life, that you want to rediscover yourself, especially sexually. It's about you. That is a place where you should always be selfish, no matter how that looks like. And if it makes you happy and it's not hurting anybody else, it shouldn't matter. Sexuality is fluid, no matter at what age you are, no matter in life you are. And it goes both ways. It goes for men. And we have to also realize that another person's sexuality has nothing to do with us. Their choice is not about us, and it has nothing to do with us. If we've been married for 10 years and all of a sudden our partner decides that they want to be with someone else, that has nothing to do with us. There is nothing wrong with us. It's the simple fact that we evolved, we changed, or you know what, I'm finally able to admit who I really am, and I want to be happy. I want to pursue that. So with that coming back, communication is key, but also you have to communicate with yourself. You have to sit down with yourself and see what you like, what you prefer, before you can actually go out there and ask your partner for what you want and give your partner what you want. You have to sit down with yourself.
Thank you, Shirley. The idea of fluidity is a really big one for me because I grew up in a home where we had obviously lots of straight people around, but also lots of gay people around. So I always knew that my parents would be fine if I were straight or gay, but I did not know that there were anything other than those two polar opposites. And so, you know, you grow up with the assumption that you're straight, and that was fine. And then in my late teens, early 20s, I started finding attractions to women. And I thought, oh, well, if I'm attracted to women, then that must mean I'm a lesbian. And so I spent a bunch of years trying to be a lesbian because that was like, I didn't have any other box to put myself in. It was a bunch of years before I heard the term bisexual. And suddenly the lights went on and I was like, oh my God, there's a place for me. I don't have to be one or the other. I can be attracted to the person, not the plumbing. But that was a really hard transition for me. And to what you were saying, Shirley, I felt a lot of guilt and a lot of shame as I had presented myself as one thing. I had come out to my community as a lesbian, and then I had to take it back instead of realizing, oh no, this is a thing that gets to shift and move over time. And sometimes I have greater attractions to a gender. Sometimes I have greater attractions to a different gender. You know, all of the genders across the spectrum. But that was a really hard learning and transition for me. So thank you for speaking to that. Anybody else want to talk on this topic? Okay, well then I'm gonna push us forward. Let's talk about how sex and your sense of sexuality can change after having kids. And I know this is a really big topic, so who wants to dive in first?
Question, what was the topic again? What can change?
How sex and sexuality might change after having kids.
Oh, yes. I think that was that Rachel?
I actually don't remember who proposed this topic.
Okay. I think it's Griffin. I'm sorry. It might have been Griffin. That's who it was. I liked what she said when she was speaking earlier about being a mom, being sexual after having kids and things like that. And it definitely changed for me. In the beginning, after my first child was born, my libido dropped terrible. It was just extremely low. Was not able to have sex. And plus my first, there was trauma related to my pregnancy. So I had an emergency C-section. I had a preemie. And so with so much trauma around it that my body was still in shock. This is my first child. And all of this happened this first time. So definitely wasn't like feeling sexual. And then I had all this weight. I was not used to that much weight, because there was a lot of fluid and things like that. What I learned over the years, and it took me to my third child actually, was when I talk about embracing your sexuality, a part of that is embracing your body. I learned to embrace my body while it was bigger. And yes, I've lost a lot of weight recently, but I remember my husband actually helped with that when I kept complaining about my body, and he finally told me that it was a turnoff. And I was like, me being overweight, he was like, no, you complaining about your body. This is the body that's given me my 3 children, my 2 daughters and my son. And he kissed every stretch mark on my body. Now that took a long ass time, but I cried the entire time. And sometimes it takes the men in our lives, the partners in our lives, to help to reflect the mirror. Like, hello, I love this. Like, kind of like what Leah was saying earlier. Like, I love your body. I love what your body has done. You need to honor your body. And it was at that moment that I learned how to embrace my body. And I began to, and so one way to do that was I began to write on it. I'm very expressive, especially with writing. I began to write about my stretch marks, my love handles, my cellulite, the scars that I used to look at as ugly and realize they were scars that brought life into the world. So my sex life definitely changed after that. But once I learned to embrace, actually something happened. My libido eventually increased, and it actually began to match my husband's and sometimes outdo his, which my husband has extremely high. It's extremely high. So it literally will begin to match where I wanted it all the time, where we had to have it several times a day. But it can go up and down after having children, and that's okay. One thing I learned was to not stress about that when it's low and that's how I'm feeling, I can cuddle, I can hold hands. That releases the love hormone oxytocin to make me feel more love. There are ways, of course, to increase your libido, but embracing is so important because it's embracing who you are, where you are. And that's where I was. Sometimes it was low. Sometimes it was high or extremely high. But I learned that even after having children, the body, the mom bod, as they say, dad bod, that mom bod that comes with that is to be honored and embraced, that you brought life into this world, but also that you're still the sexual being. You're still a sexual being. You may be a different sexual being now because now life is in it through you. But that is a badge of honor for us as moms, that look what I did through something amazing, through my sexuality, through sex. I brought life in the world. And guess what? Whether I continue to bring life into this world or not, I've done that and my body has changed. So embracing that and embracing the change and the journey that we're on sexually is a part of that. And it's okay, whether we're in the mood or not, whether things changed after children or not, it's still life. It's still life. It's a part of life.
So I'll speak for a minute, and I have to preface this by saying that I am not a mother. So I work with a lot of mothers. I have conversations with a lot of mothers, and this comes from those conversations, but I am not speaking from a place of lived experience. One of the things that I hear from moms so frequently is, I'm just exhausted. At the end of the day, I am exhausted and I don't have the energy to have sex with my partner. Like, there's just too much. And that's one more thing that I am able to do. And so I think it's really important to understand that every person has a basic touch need. We all have a minimum amount of touch that we have to have in order to keep our brain functioning correctly or appropriately. And that's quite literal. Sorry, I have to let Griffin back in. Okay. When a baby doesn't receive the amount, cuddling and holding, they can go into a state called failure to thrive. When someone is held in isolation, they can literally start to lose touch with reality. A lot of us have seen this during the pandemic when we've been in our own, modified isolation, and we start to feel like, I am not all here. Things are not okay in my head. It definitely can look like depression and anxiety for a lot of people. The synapses in our brains are actually activated by touch. So everybody has a minimum touch need, but every person also has a maximum touch, above which they're like, I'm done. I am touched out. I can't take anymore. And that is what happens so often to moms, especially when you've got little ones who are using your body as like a jungle gym and a feeding station, that your kids are requiring all of your touch, and they have no boundaries. A 3-year-old has no sense of boundaries. And so they're going to climb on you and demand of you as much as they need, which means that when at the end of the day, when your partner walks in and is like, hey, honey, let's get busy. And you're like, I got nothing left for you. And there is nothing wrong with you when that happens. That doesn't make you selfish. It doesn't make you broken. It doesn't make you a bad partner. It doesn't make you anything except tired and touched out. And so what I highly recommend in these situations, because again, over all these conversations I've had, they start with, I just don't want to have sex. I don't really want my partner to touch me at all, ever. And when we dive into it, what is below that is, oh, I actually really want my partner to touch me. I just want them to touch me differently than the way they're touching me. I don't want them to come at me with that needy, grabby, fulfill my needs energy. I want them to come to me with that air of, I want to nurture you. You are taking care of all of these things and all of these people. Now it's my turn to give back to you. And so it's so important to be able to distinguish between those two needs. Because if what you're asking for is don't touch me, you're actually pushing away from what you really need, which is caring, nurturing touch that fills your cup rather than taking more from it. And when we do our takeaways at the end of the session, I'll give you the exercise that I actually use with people for this. So that's coming up, but I don't want to take that time right now. Who else wants to talk about momming and sexing?
I'll talk a little bit about it. This is Griffin Miller. And I think probably all of us that are moms remember that moment at the postpartum checkup where the doctor's like, okay, you can have sex again. And you're like, wait, what? Like, I have milk coming out of my boobs. I'm still like, what are you talking about? And then I remember going home and thinking like, well, like my grandma had 8 kids. So clearly women figured this out. So this is not a one and done situation. And I think knowing that however you feel, 1, you're not alone, and 2, it's okay, is huge. And I think, again, one of the things, I will go into it more on my takeaway, but knowing that intimacy and sex does not always mean intercourse. And that is okay. And that can be a very beautiful, wonderful phase of your life with your partner. And just giving yourself that freedom and taking the pressure off that just because some doctor said you can go home and have sex does not mean you must go home and have sex. And there's going to be that natural ebb and flow to that. Now, all of that being said, I do think there are times where like a hormone panel is really helpful, right? If maybe we have a 2-year-old and we're still just not feeling right, there is some blood work that can give us a lot of really helpful information. There are resources. Maybe we just need more vitamins. Maybe we're forgetting to eat ourselves during the day because we're so busy feeding little humans. So taking care of basic needs can sometimes open that door for us to have sex because, oh my gosh, I had 3 meals, I drank water, I took vitamins, and I had blood work. Like those are basic things that I think we forget as moms sometimes. So I would just say, give yourself grace, but then also get help when help is needed because simple tweaks can go a really long way.
Rachel, were you going to say something? I would like to say something kind of about back to a little bit of communication. I so agree that it's totally normal. I am not a mother. Also, I want to just speak from my experience kind of working with couples. I think it's totally normal, of course, is what everybody's been saying, to be in a place where it feels different. You're not ready for sex, or you don't want as much sex, or, definitely the children also have taken your energy and your prioritization in different ways than before. And I just want to go back to communication, because I think something that can happen is that to look at your partner and what's going on with the partner a little bit in this. Because if communication doesn't happen about how you're feeling and the kind of need that you have, like Leah was talking a little bit about, hey, I have this kind of need for closeness. I have just this sort of, I need to be taken care of, this nurturing need to be receiving this energy from you. They can be misunderstood if you don't have any communication about how you're really feeling about your sexuality and what your needs are in that moment. Your partner can misunderstand that and feel rejected, or feel abandoned, and feel just shut out of the whole equation. Okay, there's this new beautiful baby in our world, or more children, and you're spending so much more time with the children. And what about me? What about my need for touch, my need for love, my need for connection? And so I think that we have to be really careful as women also, and there's already so much going on. But again, I go back to this key in communication, and why we have communication as part of this panel, is it's so key to communicate with your partner what is going on for you in the realm of sex, when around motherhood, and perhaps a new baby in the family, a new child who has arrived, or different changes in the parental world, in your world, and motherhood, and what your needs are. And that, be very clear that it's not about your partner. It's about changes in what's going on inside of you, and your needs may have changed and morphed. So I just wanted to quickly highlight that.
Yeah, Rachel here. I'm going to chime in on this one. Something interesting that I noticed about momming and the mom world is that moms don't talk about things to other moms until you're experiencing it in real time. And I noticed that. When I was pregnant, I was having all these weird feelings and hair growing in weird places. And none of my pregnant friends ever told me that happened until I was going through it in real time. And then the postpartum experience, how I just was so fragile, and I'm not a fragile person. And I didn't even recognize myself. No mom talked about it to me. They said, it's gonna be tough, but call me when you're there. And I realized it's because it doesn't make sense to talk about it until you're there. And then they are there as a support for you in real time, at least for my circle of friends. So what I realized is, I think what's helpful, and why the, mommy connection and that mommyhood is so strong, is because we are raising kids as a village together. It's so, the society we live in isn't as it was back in the day. Let's talk about ancient times, when the men would go out to hunt and the women would stay home in the village and take care of the children. And it was a super strong network of support and raising the village and raising the family. We don't have that. We have to create our own villages. We have to create our own networks. So when it comes to those changes we're experiencing, or may not recognize it, I think it is so important and vital to ask around and get like a good support team around you. Our doctors that support us, like even our pediatrician, when with this last baby, I was pregnant and gave birth during the pandemic last year. It was a doozy. It was really hard. And our pediatrician looked at both myself and my husband and said, look, she looked at him, and she said to him, Rachel is really fragile. You need to step it up and take care of her. She's not a fragile person. And even the inner critic in me was like, God, what's wrong with me? This is my second time. Why am I feeling like this? Like, there's still so much mom guilt around it, right? And so I think having a very a good support system as best as you can, even if it's through a Facebook group, don't stay quiet. Don't suffer through it alone. And the changes sexually, it's true. The hormones are all out of whack. What Griffin said is good, get the vitamins, the water, as much rest as you can. And the hormone panel is important because yes, like there was a time in my life when I was not producing any natural testosterone and estrogen, and I was having hot flashes and I didn't know what was happening to my body. But I didn't know until I got that blood work. And then I was put on a path of getting back to wellness and feeling more like myself. So, it ebbs and flows. It's completely natural. Something my husband did when I gave birth to my first son, like seconds after I pushed him out. And I pushed him out without an epidural, without anything, ladies, by the way, in the hospital, completely natural. I know that's like a total turn on for you, Griffin, that I did it that way. But I chose to do it that way in a hospital. And I felt every sensation of labor and delivery. And I wouldn't do it any differently. But the minute I pushed, like the second I pushed out my son, my husband's rubbing my face. And he says, "You are amazing." I'm like, "Thank you." And I'm like all sweaty. I'm all ugly. Like, just freaking ran a marathon and pushing his baby out. And he looks at me and he says, "I want 5. And I closed my eyes and I said, "Get out of my face." I could not. And he was serious. Couldn't believe it. For a long time, I was like, "Don't touch me. I don't trust you. I don't want to get pregnant again. He's crazy." And he meant it. He meant he wanted 5. But so, yes. And I had to sort through that for a while of being afraid and nervous that, he was going to get me pregnant again. And I didn't want to. I was still sorting myself out. The thing that I want to be out loud about for moms is the journey of becoming a mom, I think, isn't just about the kids. It's about the change we're going through as a woman. It's a complete whole new way of living life as a woman that changed for me personally, that I was having a hard time grappling with. Not necessarily the balance of it, but just who am I now? Who am I now besides this milk truck, besides this, this being that this baby always wants to climb, besides this white, like, who am I now? And so I think getting good support around that through a therapist, a doctor, a coach is super important that I don't think we highlight enough. And navigating a sex coach, navigating those seasons of change for us. So that's all I have to say about that.
Thanks, Rachel. Shirley, did you have anything you wanted to offer into this conversation? No? Okay. I want to let everybody know we are coming up to 12:30, which is our scheduled end time, but we have a little chat going on in the background, and we have a few more things we want to cover, plus we want to give you all of our takeaways. So we're going to go until for another half hour, and we welcome you to join us if you can. If not, we understand that there are other sessions you may want to go to. There was one more main topic that we had on our list, which is performance versus pleasure. And I'll start out on this one. I talk about a lot. The way that a lot of us who were socialized as little girls, who were taught how to be a good little girl, was to take care of everybody else first. Was to make sure that everyone else's needs are taken care of, and to not have too many needs of our own. And in some cases, in some communities, that went even a step further to, you don't have any needs. You just don't. As a little girl, that is not your lane. You don't get to have needs. And so we learned that in order to be acceptable in our community, in order to be acceptable in our family, we learn how to take care of everybody else first, how to not put our, yes, exactly. It's always about the other person. And then we get into our adult life, and suddenly we're supposed to know how to have a good conversation about what our needs are in bed and how to advocate for ourselves, we're supposed to even know what our needs are. There's not just a switch that flips, that suddenly we go from I'm a good little girl to I'm an empowered woman. Like that shit just doesn't happen that way. And so what happens for so many of us is that we hear the messages of, oh, well, this is how a woman acts in bed. These are the noises she makes. These are the faces she makes. These are the things that the normal woman enjoys or the sexy woman enjoys. A lot of this is driven by what is shown in porn. This is not me saying that porn is an across the board terrible thing, but when we use porn in place of sex education, we get a lot of really skewed ideas about what everyone wants. And so we go into sex thinking, well, this is how a woman moans, groans, writhes, does all the things. And so I am going to do that in order to show my partner that I'm having pleasure, in order to convince my partner that I am a good lover. What we are doing is we are performing pleasure. We are performing what our partner expects or what we think our partner expects in order to convince them and ourselves that we are a good lover. The problem is that you cannot both perform and feel at the same time, because performance is completely outward focused. It is completely about how you look, how you sound. Feeling is completely inward focused. It's literally, what am I feeling? They are mutually exclusive. You cannot both perform and feel pleasure at the same time. You can convince yourself that you're feeling something, but the actual feeling of it, those two things don't go together. And so one of the things that I'm so passionate about is helping women to stop performing pleasure in order to actually start feeling, experiencing pleasure, and realizing that it's okay for you to want what you want. It's okay for you to need of touch than what you're getting. It's okay for you to ask to have your needs fulfilled, even if it looks different than what you see in porn or in Cosmo magazine, which is, I think, the female equivalent of porn for a lot of people. It's giving lots of ideas about how the normal woman behaves, looks, wants, all of that. So I want to encourage everyone to think about how much of your sex life are you performing versus actually experiencing. Do others have things you want to say on this topic?
I have something to add really quick.
Yes, please.
To add to that, to the performing and feeling it, remember that sex looks different at every stage of your life and at every stage of your relationship. You're not going to do the same things that you do when you first start, because you're just getting to know each other. The more comfortable you are with a partner, the more maybe adventurous it's going to look. The more that maybe you do try out a sex scene that is on porn, but it takes a while to get there. It's not you just jump and you're supposed to be this crazy sex video vixen from the day one that you sleep with your partner. That's not how it works. I don't even know you. We're just getting to know each other. I'm just trying to figure out if my body responds good to you, well to you. So it does look different at every stage of our lives. Also, the more comfortable we are with ourselves, and the more comfortable we are with our partners. So it's not always going to look like the beginning. It's always going to evolve.
Yes.
I have something to add about performance and pleasure. One of the areas that I've been challenged in my past and really had to work on is the performance around orgasm. I think this is a big thing for people, and for women in particular, because their partner is getting ready and they know their partner's like, oh, super turned on and about to orgasm. And they're like, oh, I need to hurry up. I need to have an orgasm. And so we get into this performance mode of like, okay, I need to make this happen. I need to make this happen. And in that moment, again, I think our energy constricts, and instead of relaxing to the pleasure of what's there, or being able to relax completely, which has helped me to say, it's totally okay if I don't orgasm. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with who I am, with my partner, with our love, with our connection. It just means that I didn't orgasm. The amount of stories that I have created in my life around orgasming or not having an orgasm is gigantic. I've like made it mean so many things. I know other women that I've discussed this with and worked with have had the same challenges, that having an orgasm, if we make it this performance thing, actually makes it harder to have orgasms. And so it's relaxing. And again, Octavia said so many good things about it being in the mind again. But if we get this mindset of like, I must perform and have an orgasm, it takes the pleasure away. It doesn't allow us to enjoy the sensations that are there for just the sensation's sake. So that's one area that I've really worked a lot in my own life, is how can I get out of that? Continue to remind myself, just relax into the pleasure. It's okay no matter what happens.
Love that. Thank you, Margot.
I would just add too that though I am big on performance, because when women struggle with orgasms for so long and never had them, or they're very hit and miss, one of the things that actually helps with women having orgasms is when they hear themselves. And a lot of women are afraid to let go. I was never taught about embracing themselves sexually in order to release and let go, and just whatever it's going to sound like. It doesn't have to sound like what they may have heard on movies and porn. You could sound like a cheetah, a cat. You could sound like whatever when you really let go. The performance side for me is more so when I want to, or when I'm teaching ladies to, in order to please. And I think we as ladies know enough about pleasing. The experience side though, that's the part where I'm enjoying the journey. The orgasm, yes, it's the goal for those, especially who are struggling, or especially those who have had a lot of sex and their partner's getting pleased, but they never end up in that destination of the orgasm. But enjoying the journey, like letting go and enjoying the journey, allowing themselves to be pleased. So many women are in the mode of, as long as he gets his, or even if they're not enjoying it, I can't, as long as I wish he would hurry up and get his. It's not going to take long anyway, But if they just learn to let go from the mind and saying, okay, this is what I want. This is what I want. I want to feel good. There's a movie, and I'm experiencing this right now, so I can really speak from it. There's a movie called Monsters Ball. And in the movie, Halle Berry is playing this character who just lost her son. And I think one of the guards was played by Billy, I forgot his last name, but Billy Bob Thorne, I think. And she looks back to him and says, I just want you to make me feel good. That part is so big because I'm dealing with grief. And one of the things that's helping me right now, and grief comes in waves and stages. At any moment, I could have a breakdown. But one of the things that helps me is sexual healing. And I just want to feel good. When there's so much pain, or you've been through so much, sometimes or many times we just want to feel good. And so we want to just finally have some sex where I don't have to perform, where I don't have to make sure that he gets his. I just want to feel good the way I want to feel good. And we just relax, like Margot was saying, and just enjoy that journey of feeling good. Oftentimes my clients have found they get to the destination when they release and let go and just say, hey, you know what? I just want to feel all of this pleasure, because sex, I believe, also has sexual healing tendencies and practices that helps. And there's something about it's more that orgasm only lasts for seconds. It only lasts for seconds. There's 4 stages to it. Only lasts for seconds. But that journey of getting there can be so pleasurable that we can feel it, and we are deserving of that pleasure. that when it's not necessarily about the destination. Okay, we can work to get to that. But that journey along the way to feel it after you finally get to that destination, you will look back many times. Yeah, you're going to think about the explosive orgasm, but you're going to look back on that journey and remember every step of the way. They're like, whoa, I so needed that. I really needed that. And so while I'm fine with the performance and the pleasing, the experience, like Leah said, like that is what really and truly we can become one, not only with our partners, but ourselves, to be like, I'm here to be pleased and I'm deserving of it.
Love it. Thank you, Octavia. So I'm going to transition us into our closing and takeaways. And I'm going to encourage everybody to, when you do your let people know how to find you, put your links into the chat so that people can grab that if they want it. And you have a hard out, so why don't you go first?
I can stay to the end. It's okay. So I want to just leave you all with, again, the power of communication, because that's one of my loves. And really recommending that, think about tonight or this evening, or maybe in a couple days from here or this weekend, about how you could create a safe space for you and your partner to have the kind of communication you really want around your sex life. And using Leah's list, perhaps, I think that's super fun. The yes and no list is a starting place. But what I really think is important is creating the sacred container, a place where perhaps the kids have gone to bed, where maybe you light a candle, but it's a sacred container for communication in an authentic way from your heart. And even if it's just starting with one or two simple things, play with Rochelle's way of maybe making a menu. I think that's also really fun. But I love, just have fun with it. And I think it's just about showing up and being courageous enough to just speak our truth about, you know what, this is my need, and it's okay to have needs. So I'm just going to encourage all of you to really play this week with, how can you communicate what you really need in wanting your sex life? And if you want to find me, again, my name is Margot Zayer. I forgot that part. And my website is margotzayer.com. And I do relationship work called Relationship Reset Bootcamp for women to really empower themselves in their relationships. So I will put that in the chat too.
Great. Thank you so much, Margot. Griffin, you go next.
Yeah, absolutely. So my takeaway, I told you guys in the beginning, I'm a big tips, tricks, action item kind of girl. And so I would challenge you all to have a non-intercourse intimacy night with your partner. And there are really endless options here, but I would challenge you to think back to maybe high school. What was intimacy like for you before intercourse even entered the picture? I actually dated my husband in high school, so it's still the same guy. And we used to go get coffee and then make out in the Starbucks parking lot. And so that is a really fun thing to return to now as adults and parents with all sorts of responsibilities. But that could look very different for you. Maybe it is giving each other massages and not letting it move past body touch. Maybe there's so many options. Have fun with it. And to find me, I do have an ebook that is a overwhelmed mom's guide to better sex with her partner. It is absolutely free. I will throw that link into the chat, as well as I have a Facebook group for overwhelmed moms where we do free weekly trainings, interviews, and just kind of break down that stigma by talking about it. So I have been so grateful for this opportunity, and I look.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Griffin. And because my takeaway sort of dovetails on yours, I'll go next. So what I want to offer you, and I'm going to put this link in the chat, is something called the 3-minute game, which is very much tailored to what Griffin was talking about. about focusing on the touch and the intimacy without going all the way to intercourse. The 3-minute game is something that as a mom with little kids, you can do, because it literally takes, there are 4 sections and each section is 3 minutes. And you can do them, 3 minutes at a time or all together, but it can be very short. And really what it's, the focus is on requesting the kind of touch that you want, and then giving your partner the kind of touch that they want. And the primary question that happens during it is, how would you like me to touch you for 3 minutes? So that it's not about performance. It's not about orgasm. It's just about sinking into the pleasure of touch. And again, going back to what I was saying about touch needs with moms and wanting to be nurtured, this is a way to get those nurturing needs met in a way that's hopefully not going to cause any I don't understand why I'm not giving you what you need and how come you want. It's just like, hey, let's play a game. I'm a huge fan of games. Let's make it fun so that you can sort of bypass those, there are a lot of people who have automatic no's. You say like, I want to try something. And they're like, no, I can't do that. And then you come back to them a day later and they're like, well, I've thought about it and maybe we could do that. So in order to bypass the automatic no, I like to offer games. So the 3-minute game is a great way that you can literally do it tonight to just focus on the pleasure of touching each other. As for me, I am Leah Carey. My website for coaching is leahcarey.com. I also have the podcast, Good Girls Talk About Sex, where I interview women about their sex lives. This is not an expert, this has been an expert panel where we all talk about sex and how to have better sex and all of that. The podcast is me interviewing just regular old women and regular young women and skinny women and fat women and women of all races and women of all body types and disabilities and all the whole spectrum, trans, gender nonconforming, all of it. I ask them about how they like to have sex. So that's Good Girls Talk About Sex. And you can find me on Instagram at Good Girls Talk. And this has been such a pleasure, this conversation. So thank you to all of you. Shirley, why don't you go next?
Guys, so my takeaway with this, kind of going back into communication and consent, is to actually sit down with yourself and ask yourself what feels good and what does consent look like to you now, where you are in your relationship at this moment, and have that conversation with your partner and see where it leads, because your partner might have different ideas of what your no really meant. So once you communicate that, it's that first communication they having to have better sex, and also what feels good for you. And you could find me at Alien Healer on Instagram, alienhealer.com. And I also have a podcast named Alien Healer.
Excellent. Thank you, Shirley. Rachel?
Rachel here. All right, ladies. So if there's anything I want you to take away from me in this panel, is to just turn on your Enchantress. Pun intended. Turn her on. Turn on the play. Turn on the sexy. Bring her out to play. Like, again, I said before, so many of us put away the Enchantress because she got us in trouble, or she died off a little bit when we had kids and forgot about her. So bring her out to play. Bring out that playful side of you, that sexy side of you, what brings you pleasure, and just focus on what's immediately in front of you. Don't let that inner critic compare you to swinging off chandeliers, having that perfect body, don't let her do that. The Enchantress is just all about focusing on what brings you pleasure in the moment. And it could be just being in the moment of actually tasting your food while you're eating it. Like, eat a good strawberry, Eat a good apple and just taste every bite to enhance those senses. So yes, turn on the play in your unique way. Turn on your pleasure in your unique way, in your unique Enchantress way. Have fun with her. Do what's right in front of you. Don't worry about taking 10 steps ahead. Just do what's right in front of you to have her out, have more play with your family, with your kids, and especially with your partner to bring out the happy. So that's what I recommend. My takeaway for you. Again, I'm your go-to girl for life and relationship coaching, up-leveling your relationships to power partnerships and powerful feminine leadership. So you can find me at RachelCacco.com. Cacco is like taco, but with a C, RachelCacco.com, or email me at Rachel@RachelCacco.com. And I'm so happy to be here. And I loved our panel. We rocked it, ladies. I loved our own little flavors of it. And just, I hope you ladies out there got enough of what you needed from us that will help you along the journey.
Thank you, Rachel. Octavia, please bring us home.
Okay, yes, I agree, Rachel. This was amazing. I think we're an amazing panel. And fed off each other as well. The energy was amazing here. And I'm glad for my first time back. It's been a few months for me and it's my first time back, and you all were just so amazing and made me feel so welcome and warm. And I really appreciate that for all that I've been dealing with. So thank you, ladies, for that, number one. Number two, as I said, I'm Octavia Evans, aka OEV, and I call myself the Harriet Tubman of your sex life because I lead high achieving women of faith from sexual frustration to sexual liberation by teaching them to embrace their sexuality in order to create the shifts in sex life of their dreams. And that's the part I want to leave with today, is to dream. When we were girls, we had imagination. We dreamed about what we wanted to do when we got older. Sometimes we dreamed about what we wanted to do the next day or the next month, or somewhere along the lines, we stopped doing that. We stopped dreaming because we felt like when reality set in, and maybe when adults told us the realities of this world, that couldn't be true, that we couldn't be the Little Mermaid, or we couldn't be the princess, or we couldn't be the queen of our own queendom. When in fact, I found out that that's not true. We actually can. We can dream and create the sex life that we want, the relationships that we want. We don't have to conform to what society says. When it comes to our sexuality, as we are learning to embrace it, we're actually unlearning to relearn, because we learned so much against what we first thought about, what we first believed, and what we first dreamt about. And I'm saying to all ladies here today to start dreaming again and do whatever it takes to make those dreams come true. That's where your freedom lies. And in my mentorship program, I actually start with the mindset. And one of the things we tackle first is the root of why you believe and think what you think, and say the things that you say and do the things that how do you have the patterns that you have, the condemnations, the guilt, and all of those things. And then eventually, as we go through those steps, it's kind of like how Harriet Tubman went on she went on this journey, right, to her freedom. She had to go to different places. They call it the Underground Railroad. So we go like through these different spots and places, and we learn this is where the sexual trauma happened for me here. We learn this is where I begin to deny myself. This is where I stopped believing and stopped dreaming. And so once we found out the root and we uproot it, then we have to plan again. So that's the unlearn part. And then we relearn, and then we learn to dream again that we actually can still have this. We have breath. We still have life. So we can actually create the life that we want, the relationship and sex life that we want. No one can stop us but us. So if it's one thing I hope that we take away from this, is that to dream again and create the shifts in sex life. You can find me at Octavia Evans anywhere on social media. My website is octaviaevans.com. You can sign up to be on my list to get when I have things and live streaming events and things like that. And also on Clubhouse. I'll be back starting next week with a daily show at 3:30 Central, 4:30 Eastern, called Sex for Ladies, where we talk about all things sex for ladies of faith. And as I told someone in the comments earlier about how to reach me for interviews or requests, that is a way. It's on my website as well. And the last thing is I have a book releasing at the end of this year called 23 Things Women Need to Ask a Man Before Giving Him Sex. And it's just had a press release and been released everywhere. I had to fight for that because anytime you're doing sex, anything, it's like, no, no, no. So it took months to get it, but finally the press release was just done. So I look forward to engaging with many of you after this.
Thank you so much. I think we've done it. Thank you all. This has been such an amazing conversation. I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to learn from and talk with all of you. So thank you. And if anybody wants to reach us, it looks like everybody put their links into the chat. And thank you again. Take care. Here's to your better sex life. Bye.
Bye.